How important is getting away from your home and your workplace for a while?
Niall Spooner-Harvey is joining us today to discuss third spaces on the undercurrent.
Greetings and salutations.
Hello, hello, hello. Guess what, Uncle Warren? We're
Um,
back on my Facebook. We're back on my Facebook page. Or actually, my profile. Remember, we were having that problem for a long time?
okay.
And I was finally able to, I think, figure out what the problem was, and I got it working. And I just checked, and I am live on Facebook.
I can sleep better now.
I'm glad to hear
that. Yeah. Well, you were already live on your other Facebook page too,
yeah,
right?
but that's a smaller one. That's just a little page there. So now now I'm live back on the one where I have more of a following. So yeah.
Well, too bad for your Facebook followers. You have to see
Yeah, I
this
know they
ugly
have to
mug,
see
so.
this. They have to listen to me.
You're fine. It's me. I'm the hex, as it were, the Jonah. Remember, you ever heard of that? What a Jonah was? That it was a bad luck omen or something like that.
Never heard about that.
I don't know where that comes from, but that is a thing. I do remember it, or I could have just made it up in my head. I do hallucinate sometimes for funsies. You know, I'm good at parties with my hallucinations. Just a forewarning for those out there. We got lucky yesterday, but I don't know about today. We got more severe weather coming through the Chicago area today, and so the internet may not cooperate. So if I duck out, it's not because I don't like you people. I think you're very fine folks, but the internet may not like you, and they may say no more for you. But we'll talk about the storms that came through yesterday here in just a moment. Let's say hi to John and Chuck in the chat there. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good to see you both. Thank you all. Thank you both for your support. You're always out here for us. Much appreciated. And yeah, also out for a lot of our friends as well in the space. It's always good to see these folks and all of you that really come out and support us. We really appreciate that.
I'm just assuming Chuck is a gentleman. We haven't checked under the hood to see what's going on there. You know, aliens, that could be anything. So we'll just say, what up, yo? And leave it at that, so we don't get in trouble with people. So big doings here in Chicago with the weather. We'll get to that shortly, but let us, because you know that's the poopy stuff.
And now peppers are a problem.
Poopy peppers. Same people, I think, too. Yeah, we'll get to that here shortly too. But South America is really just getting hammered with these earthquakes. First, it was Venezuela not too long ago, and now Colombia. Brand new president too. Good luck there, pal. As frantic search for survivors is over 2,700 reported missing. There's a 7.4. I think it was the ones that hit Venezuela was a 7.1 and a 7.4 right after it too. So they got the double dose. So rescuers are searching through collapsed buildings in Western Colombia for survivors after the country's strongest earthquake this century killed at least 250 people and caused widespread devastation, according to local authorities. Emergency teams in the worst affected cities, including Cali and Pereira, have been working through the night and into basically today, listening for signs of life and trying to reach people trapped beneath concrete and debris during the magnitude 7.4 earthquake. The Choco region west of Cali and Pereira has also been impacted, but the extent of the damage is still not clear. Authorities have warned that the death toll from Monday's quake could rise as search teams reach more affected areas in a big challenge for newly elected far-right President Abelardo de la Espriella. So this is the map of Colombia here. This is where it hit. That's the epicenter right there. Right there on the Ring of Fire. around the Pacific. So dozens of people were killed in Cali, located about 175 miles southwest of the capital, Bogota. Monday, the president said 35 people were killed in the city. Dozens of buildings were left leaning precariously or destroyed outright, forcing residents into the streets in the city of about 2.2 million people. Local authorities farther north in the Risaralda region, where Pereira is located, said the death toll included at least 40 people there killed there. Authorities also confirmed 9 people killed in the Choco region, 2 in the Caldas region, and a 73-year-old in the Antioquia region there. And at least 87 people were initially reported injured, but De La Espriella later reported 700 injured in Valle de Caca. Alone, more than 2,700 people have been reported missing on citizen-run websites by Monday night, although that figure does not necessarily represent the number of people confirmed missing. About 1,600 buildings have been damaged or destroyed, including the towers of a historic cathedral in the city of Manizales. Several of the top floors of one of Cali's hospitals, some dedicated to pediatric care, collapsed upon themselves, leaving some patients trapped and forcing about 600 others to be tended to on a street strewn with rubble. Hospital director Irene Torres Castro told Caracol Television. So the latest rescue efforts, the President Espriella, who assumed power last Friday, said rescuing people trapped under rubble was the government's first priority as he declared a state of emergency. He traveled to Choco's capital, Quibdó, on Monday night and announced that he had mobilized the entire military and police apparatus to respond, deploying engineers, rescue workers, and search dogs. Cali and Pereira implemented curfews on Monday night. So this is an ongoing effort going on in Colombia. Again, as we told you, Venezuela hit a few weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Japan hit with one too. All of those areas on the ring of the ring of fire around the Pacific there, which is very dangerous. A lot of active fault lines around there, and now South America getting hit twice in about a month or so.
Obviously incredibly distressing. It's you're right. I mean, it sometimes it kind of even runs into each other. A lot of these weather disasters, when wildfires, whatnot, the frequency is alarming.
Yeah. And I don't know what's up with that. Actually, the earth does its own thing, moving tectonic plates and whatnot. But there are some areas that have been due for the big one, including areas of California too, up that region there too. So I lived in California for a little bit and had survived a couple of minor tremors. Nothing. I mean, I say survived, but went through a few minor tremors. It was nothing. Shook a few glasses on the shelf, but this was I saw the video for this stuff, and this was just like utter collapse. His church is collapsing, and the hospital too, and it's just like the whole ground. I don't know. There was this one video I saw a while back of a particular. It was some earthquake. I can't remember where it was, but you could see like there was like some sort of like security camera or something, and you could see like the ground just go like this, just shit. I'd be like, I'm getting in a hot air balloon. I'm getting the hell out of here. So we talked about this last time.
Up and away, like the Fifth Dimension used to sing.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's like when there's a flood or something there, you have a chance to get away from that. But if it's right under your feet,
not much you can do about it. And we kind of count on that. Like every morning we swing our feet out of bed and we don't question whether there's stable ground underneath us. So that really kind of messes with your head, I would think.
I don't know. Maybe we should. The way things are going, who knows, right? It was here in Chicago yesterday. It was dark as night with all these severe storms coming through. We had some actual tornado warnings here in this. Fortunately, nothing here in the city, but the southern suburbs, man, they got hammered as usual. As more severe storms, damaging winds may hit the south suburbs again, with 142,000 still without power in Chicago. And here's a tree. People say, well, how those trees fall down? It's it's a combo of the wind and then a soaking of the ground around the roots, right? So even and the bigger the tree is, the more weight it has, where it could just easily just pull out of the ground like that. So you have to be very careful. After the south suburbs were rocked by at least 3 tornadoes yesterday, additional severe weather could hit the area as over 142,000 ComEd customers remain without power today. A severe thunderstorm watch was in effect for Joliet, Kankakee, DeKalb until 1 p.m. today for another 2 hours. According to the National Weather Service, severe weather could bring downpours and gusty winds, though these storms may not be as strong as yesterday's weather. Let me get down to where they were talking about this. I thought there was more to this. But basically, let's see. So they say a line of thunderstorms was expected to move through Chicago area late today, between 1/4 and 1/2 inch rain. He said, Rick Johnson, a Mokina, is that right? Resident of more than 30 years, said his home lost power the same as it did last month. For 4 days during another round of storms, he said he never experienced so many powerful and destructive storms in a single summer. And just as from a bird's eye view from yesterday, so the Chicago area, mostly where we're at here near Wrigley Field, and to the south and west, we had 3 tornado warnings. And there was a derecho that came through too. These straight line winds that were doing a lot of damage to those, particularly those areas in the southern and southwestern and western suburbs. It always seems like the western suburbs always gets flooding too. There,
yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's nuts, and I think that many people in Chicago. I mean, I know this. Are just just are not used to this sort of thing. And then you might hear a siren or you get a tornado watch and that happens. But to having this happen so much closer to home more frequently, I think it's changing things up. Also, Chicago's coming off of the air quality issue with the wildfire smoke coming in.
Yeah.
And that was crazy stuff.
Yeah. We had the worst air quality in the world that day.
No longer the second city. I mean, we're
number one. We're number one. Yeah, it's kind of rare to see actual tornadoes in the city itself, although that has happened before.
Yeah.
Actually, not too long ago. I was in New York at the time when it happened. I was like, whoa, there was one actually in the city. That's crazy.
Yeah, things were just that was just nuts.
Yeah, but for the most part, it always seems like the southern suburbs, southwest, and the west, and then of course you had northwestern Indiana too, Gary and areas around there just getting hammered too. It's one of those things where it's like I looked outside and I was like, oh well, it looks like we're gonna get some rain today, and then the phone went off, just this bam, bam, the hell, and I looked and it said tornado warning, and I was, where are these tornadoes at? Where am I gonna hide?
Man, I tell you, I remember as a kid there were some really bad ones out in the northwest suburbs, and I remember this was the time before cell phones, and I was probably around 5 maybe. And back then kids we were free range kids. I mean, and so I was, my cousins lived a few doors down, and we all moved back and forth from the time we were very, very little. And I remember my mom had been out, she was in a theater group, and she came back, and fortunately it did not hit our area bad, but it was something. And she found me at home with my dad, and She said, I was so worried that you might, be going outside and you might be trapped between the two houses trying to figure out which house to go to, whether it was to go to my cousins or at my place. And she was glad to see me at home. And that's was, again, she couldn't call my dad to tell him, well, go out and try and find her. And at that time, people needed to be reminded to go out and find their kids. Remember, we were, in fact, sheriffs had these announcements. Hey, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your kids are? It's partly an anachronism to talk about it now, but back then, you couldn't collect your kids that easily in these situations, and that was a pretty scary one.
Yeah, they instilled it. We had a lot of like bad thunderstorms and whatnot down south, so we knew once the sky was starting to get dark gray, it's like, okay, it's time to head back to the house. And it seems like here, from what I read, that this is the most tornadic activity Illinois has had. I think last year broke the record, and most of those were in southern Illinois and around Missouri, where Poppy in the chat there is from.
Oh, okay.
But coming up this far north is really, it seems like this is in a whole new other territory. So
cats and dogs living together.
Yeah, fighting like hell, apparently. There's supposed to be a solar eclipse today. Here in Chicago, I think we could see like 2% of the eclipse. So it's just like it'll kind of clip a corner or whatever. But up if you go north, like Greenland and I believe parts of Europe and Russia are going to be able to see it. But UK was actually going to have some issues with the solar eclipse, as the UK's biggest power supplier issues solar eclipse warning. Dun dun dun. Yeah, like not the sky is falling, but your solar power is probably not going to work. For the most part. So Britain's biggest household power supplier, Octopus Energy, has asked customers to cut electricity use for 2 hours today to cope with a solar eclipse during peak demand. You never really think about that with solar power. You always think, the sun's out. It's out for 12 hours and it's down for 12 hours. Then you forget about the old solar eclipse. A total eclipse of the sun, the first visible from mainland Europe since 1999, will occur today from around 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, or about 4 to 8 p.m. London time. The UK is expected to experience a deep partial eclipse with around 90 to 96% of the sun obscured. The National Energy System Operator, NESO, which runs Britain's grid, estimates solar generation could fall by up to 1.3 gigawatts. That's gigawatts. I'm sorry. I was channeling Back to the Future. 1.3 gigawatts, equivalent to the power used to fire up a time machine. No, I'm sorry. Equivalent to the power used by around 1 million homes. With the eclipse partly coinciding with peak evening demand, Octopus Energy asked its roughly 8 million UK customers on Monday to avoid using appliances and devices such as dishwashers, game consoles, and washing machines from 6 to 8 p.m. The voluntary scheme offers households that comply 1 hour of free electricity on August 16th. Customers who share photos on social media showing what they did outside instead of using power can also win free solar panels and installation, or a 12,000 pound or a $16,200 cash alternative. Yummy. Octopus believes that if enough households delay electricity use during the eclipse, it could reduce the need for Britain's grid operator to fire up additional gas-powered stations to replace lost solar generation. Solar Energy UK recently reported that solar accounted for 14.4% of UK electricity generation in July, a monthly record, while a single-day record of 19.5% was set in late May. NESO data shows renewables now account for around 40% of Britain's energy mix, up from 30% 5 years ago. The news comes as the UK, a major Western sponsor of the Kiev regime and leading advocate of sanctions on Russia, continues to grapple with high energy costs after largely cutting itself off from cheap Russian energy following the escalation of the Ukraine conflict in 2022. Direct imports of Russian coal, crude oil, and refined petroleum products fell to zero by mid-2022, forcing British suppliers to accelerate the shift to renewables and secure alternative imports. Growing reliance on costly liquefied natural gas has left Britain paying premiums on the global market and more exposed to price volatility. So yeah, it's that's one of those weird things. A solar eclipse doesn't happen very often, thank goodness for these solar plants, but when they do, you have to make adjustments for it for sure.
I like that the UK has a company called Octopus Energy.
Yeah, it's like 8 ways to pay. Is it right? Because it's all 8 hands being handed out. What's up, Yepper? But if you use your phone, take a pic, upload it to social media, which is housed on a server, are you still using electricity? Well, you kind of are, but it's not coming off the grid, I don't think. If you're doing it straight from your phone, but if you're doing it from your computer, yes, definitely. You're kind of defeating the purpose there.
I think the server is going to be using electricity. That may be the point there.
Depends on where the server is too.
Yeah.
It could be in the UK, could be somewhere else. But I thought that was an interesting story there.
It is.
And plus we got to get the fact in that the solar eclipse is happening today too. Apparently there was supposed to be 7 seconds of no gravity too. That was a thing, but that didn't happen. So,
and we worry about earthquakes.
I know. I'm too large to float off the ground. Even if the gravity did stop for 7 seconds, I'd be like, hey! I'd just be eating more. So some more doings in New York with Mamdani and Amazon this time. As Mamdani backs proposal to end Amazon's exploitative delivery model in New York City. So Mayor Mamdani has thrown his support behind legislation that could become a first-in-the-nation law to regulate Amazon's network of subcontractors that deliver the $3 trillion company's packages, an exploitative business model that shields the e-commerce giant from accountability, as Mamdani said Monday. The Democratic mayor endorsed the Delivery Protection Act proposed by New York City Council member Tiffany Caban, which would establish new safety, training, and labor standards for last-mile warehouses and distribution facilities in New York City and hold the companies that operate the facilities, such as Amazon and FedEx, liable for employing the workers who make hundreds of deliveries per day across the city. And just so you know, a last mile warehouse is basically they come from the distribution centers to the local ones, and then from there, that's where it goes from there to your house or your business or whatever. As the mayor's office said Monday, at least 11 last mile facilities have opened across New York City since 2020, with subcontractors running the warehouses as Amazon directs the hiring of delivery drivers, the routes they use, and requires them to use Amazon branded vehicles and uniforms. But while exerting control over the deliveries, Amazon pushes responsibility for the vehicles used onto the subcontractors, as delivery workers explained in a video released on social media by Mamdani on Monday. When injuries and worker accidents skyrocket, Amazon says they have nothing to do with it. They can't have it both ways, said the workers. According to a report by the Office of the Comptroller in New York City last year, 78% of areas surrounding last mile facilities saw an increase in injury-causing crashes after the warehouses opened. Corporations like Amazon build billion-dollar business models by insulating themselves from accountability through a system of exploitative subcontracting, said Mamdani in a statement. As last-mile delivery centers have exploded across New York, so too have traffic accidents and worker injuries. The Delivery Protection Act is common sense regulation that protects delivery workers, safeguards the communities where these facilities operate, and ensures that the corporations benefiting from the workers' labor are responsible for the consequences of their business practices. The people who make these companies run deserve dignity, stability, and a safe workplace, he added. It's time to end the subcontracting model that puts profits over people and build an economy that works for working New Yorkers. By using subcontractors, Amazon can avoid municipal regulations regarding minimum pay and benefits. Oh, shocking. A big giant corporation trying to screw their workers. You never hear about that. A nationwide survey by the Shift Project at the Harvard Kennedy School's Malcolm Weiner. I'm not sure. I'm going to say Weiner because screw it. It's Amazon. Who cares? Harvard's Kennedy School's Malcolm Weiner Center for Social Policy last year found that Amazon delivery drivers are paid an average of $19 per hour compared with $35 per hour at UPS and $25 per hour at FedEx. Pay does not rise with the tenure at Amazon as opposed to its delivery competitors, and fewer than half of Amazon drivers have access to health insurance, paid vacation, and retirement plans that are provided to nearly all UPS delivery workers. We're talking about these are the same people that keep bottles in their trucks to urinate in because they're not allowed to make time for themselves. Kind of like in the warehouses too.
Yeah.
In New York City, pay for the drivers who make Amazon's deliveries is higher, starting at about $20 per hour. Ooh, a whole dollar more. And averaging close to $24 per hour. But one driver in Queens, Luke Renee, told the New York Times that Amazon controls the volume of packages he delivers and has refused to allow the subcontractor he works for, DNA Logistics, to lighten the workload during extreme heat and other inclement weather. Company could not be reached for a comment to the Times, and Amazon did not address Renee's allegations, but claimed it adjusts drivers' routes due to inclement weather. Amazon has claimed that the Delivery Protection Act, which would require last-mile facilities to obtain licenses from the city's Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, ensure worker protections, and hold companies accountable for delivery quotas, schedules, and routes, would raise costs for people because, of course, pass it on to the consumer and not the fact that they're $1 trillion company. Forget about that. Would raise costs for people who use delivery services, with one Amazon commission study claiming households would spend $664 more annually if the company had to comply with the law. Well, they wouldn't have to. They would just push that to the customers. They could eat it themselves easily, but they're not going to do that. But Brendan Griffith, president of the New York City Central Labor Council, AFL-CIO, said the workers and communities in New York City are already paying the price for Amazon's reliance on subcontractors. The Delivery Protection Act will establish stronger protections for worker safety, employment, and responsible operations while bringing long overdue oversight to an industry where major operators have too often hidden behind subcontractors, said Griffith. To be clear, when these companies raise the alarm of fewer jobs, higher prices, or service reductions, they are describing choices that they may make, not in the best interest of consumers and workers, but to protect their bottom line. We thank Mayor Mamdani for standing with the Amazon Teamsters and the labor movement in support of this legislation that puts in New York City workers who are also consumers first, and we urge the city council to pass it without delay. Mamdani's advocacy for the legislation in New York City caught the attention of at least one lawmaker across the country. We should pass something like this in Colorado, said State Representative Javier Mabry in Colorado. Yes, and they should, because that's what these big giant corporations always do. They lay it on the subcontractors. And if there's any, not our fault, that was the subcontractor, right? So this law might put accountability on Amazon, but that doesn't mean they're not going to push those costs onto that. They're not going to push those costs onto the consumers. They most definitely will.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Again, if you can't afford to compensate your workers appropriately, and you can't afford to give them decent working conditions, you can't afford to be in business. And I continue to maintain that that's true small businesses to multinational corporations. And Amazon, it's just an example of a business that makes ridiculous amounts of money for the very people who are really not putting their bodies and their lives on the line.
Yeah. And not paying their people at all, giving them the bare minimum too. I mean, that's just such a, that's such a terrible thing to do. Is not only, you push this off on the employees and you push these, regulation costs onto the consumers, but still it's the biggest, and people will still continue to use Amazon regardless until, again, just like anything else, until it actually affects them, and then they'll start caring. But until then, it's all that, it's the workers that suffer. It's the people who kind of, depend on Amazon for some of the things that they get.
Yeah.
And to have these higher prices or higher costs pushed onto them too. It's just,
we've also, though, gotten very used to this level of speed, for delivery and that sort of thing. I remember when Amazon came out with Prime for the first time. And at that point, Prime, if you were a Prime member, you got free 2-day delivery. And I believe that was, through the post office, priority mail, or whatever. There was none of this driving around in trucks and bringing stuff to you individually. It was through established channels, and we got used to that standard. And then they kept on pushing the envelope. But for a long time, we did okay. Do you remember back in the day, Uncle Warren, when they had Ronco? And if you were buying stuff on TV, and you could actually pay COD, collect on delivery, where the postal
COD,
would actually take the money from you. But delivery was typically 6 to 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wanted something quicker, you had to go to the store to buy it. And we just got that time just got shorter and shorter and shorter. And now we're expecting stuff within 30 minutes. And we have streets that are not set up for a bunch of delivery trucks running around. So this is it's really taken a toll, not only on the workers, but this particular standard it may not prove to be sustainable.
Yeah. There's a lot of cities like here in Chicago and New York too, that the infrastructure hasn't caught up with the times, especially here in Chicago, the way this, talking about putting in the bike lanes, and what a big hassle that's been for drivers and stuff, because the streets are, they're okay enough size for just regular traffic, but to put in bike lanes, which I feel is a necessity, because there's a lot more people riding bicycles, and that it's very dangerous to ride in the traffic with the big cars and stuff. But still, it's like, you and then you have these Amazon trucks along with like UPS and FedEx who, will park in like turn lanes and bike lanes and stuff because there's nowhere else to park. I thought we were gonna have, I thought the drones were gonna like drop the stuff on. What happened to that?
And then there's the drones. I mean, they are expanding the drone networks. It is happening, but it's got its own set of issues. You've got radio waves, and you have to operate these things, and then you have people with their guns, they want to shoot them down. People, then they drop stuff from high distances, and somebody gets hit on the head, and so yeah,
the target practice is probably, especially South Side. They're like, those drones come through there, they're like, oh, look at that, it's time for some target practice. That's crazy. But good on New York trying to get that done, and maybe that'll spread. We'll see. How big, and like I said, it's a $3 trillion company. For God's sakes, you can't eat those costs for doing that. Greed is terrible. Meanwhile, out in Cali, Sassoon City Hall. I almost said Susudio. That's it's a Genesis song. Or no, it's a Phil Collins song. Sorry.
Yeah.
So Sassoon City Hall still closed 3 days after cyber attack. I'm saying that 10 times. Sassoon City remained under a state of emergency on Monday after malicious software attacked the city's computer network. City Hall is closed to the public, shutting down in-person services for the planning, building, housing, water, finance, human resources, and public works departments, as well as the city manager's office, according to a Monday news release from the city. Online city services and some internal operations remain unavailable. The cybersecurity incident began around 5:45 a.m. on Friday last week, when malware infected and compromised city IT systems, according to a Sassoon City news release. The city shut down its entire network to contain the intrusion and preserve evidence for a federal investigation. The city council declared a state of emergency during a special meeting Saturday morning, allowing Sassoon City to access emergency assistance and recover costs tied to the attack. The city is working with the FBI, Department of Homeland Security, California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, and other regional and state agencies to investigate the intrusion and restore its systems. SFGate, that's this outlet here, reached out to the FBI San Francisco Bureau, but did not hear back before publication. Maybe they got hit too. The disruption affected critical public safety operations, including 911, police, and fire dispatch, as well as record systems and city hall services. Sassoon City dispatchers have been routing calls through the Solano County Dispatch Center, while local police officers and firefighters continue responding to emergencies. The police department lobby also remains open for ticket sign-offs, vehicle releases, speaking with an officer, and general assistance. And you say you have some additional information.
Yeah, I do. First of all, this is obviously this is a major concern. Thing that I'm thinking about when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, we're worried about nukes, and it doesn't. You don't need nukes to take out a country or to severely hobble it. All you have to do is just mess with them through their computers and through their various networks. And this is a prime example of that. And so I did a little research on this, and this is actually in the past 2 weeks, the city of Beacon in New York got hit by a ransomware attack. The city of McMinnville, Oregon, also got hit. The South Carolina Regional Housing Authority got hit, and this is just in the past 2 weeks. In France, 2 places in France got hit by this. In March, there was a case in Foster City, California. Pittsburgh, California got hit in February 2026. There was St. Joseph County, Indiana, was breached in April. Winona County in Minnesota got hit twice this year. The Nevada state government got hit late last year, or midsummer of last year. This is happening. And if you'll notice, some of these are smaller towns where they don't have the money or the budget for very sophisticated firewalls and ways of preventing this, but also they may not have the redundant systems. If you're dealing with any kind of city management, particularly in the area of disaster or emergency management, you have redundant systems that exist, particularly in big cities like Chicago, so things can be brought right back up. A lot of these smaller areas don't have that. And so they're being hit. This can cause real distress for folks in these areas. And some, fortunately, I don't think there's been any loss of life here, but that can be very serious. But it also provides practice for these organizations that are going in and perpetrating these attacks.
Yeah. I was about to say, why would they pick a small city like that? But that makes sense. It's like kind of a practice run.
Yeah.
To see what they can get away with in the small towns, and then maybe upping their game, trying for the big cities. But like you said, there are a lot of redundancies, especially in these bigger cities like Chicago, New York, LA, that do have this. But then again, if you know what you're doing, you can even find backdoors in those systems as well. And like you said, you don't need nukes to take out people. In fact, the scare so much now isn't with nuclear weapons anymore. It's more with electromagnetic pulse weapons, EMPs.
Yeah.
Take out a power grid and everything that's not, tucked away in a Faraday cage. And you basically can take over something and leave the infrastructure intact. But
absolutely.
In the case of Chicago, whoever took over Chicago would have to deal with the potholes. And yeah, it's like, good luck, buddy.
And Chicagoans, but never mind that.
Yeah. The target practice with the drones. It's like, you careful what you wish for.
Exactly.
Well, I guess our guest is here, and it's time for the catch of the day. Let's go ahead and bring in Niall. Hello,
hey, Niall.
Hello, I'm the catch of the day. That's good. That makes me feel like a big fish.
That's right. You were across the pond, not in the pond.
Actually, he's here.
Oh, you're here?
I am.
Well, you're from across the pond.
I'm here. I'm across the lake. I'm across Lake Michigan and quite a few miles.
That's a big pond too.
So yeah, in a way, I am across a large pond, but not the very large one.
Well, it's good to see you.
So, first of all, Niall and I are very old friends. Those of you who may have followed Hardlands Media back in the day, he was actually one of the first guests we had on our radio show back in 2017. He even composed a poem for the show, which he read on our show, and that was a lot of fun. But Niall and I go back a long time ago, and Niall does live here in the States right now. But Niall has an interesting career. He was a poet. He's done a lot of poetry readings, poetry slams over here and in the UK, also done stand-up comedy here. He's actors. And lately he's been very active as a quiz master at various pub quizzes and trivia nights. And I wanted to bring him in because lately there has been some buzz about what was called the lack of third places or third spaces. Effectively, a third space or a third place was a term coined in 1989 by an urban sociologist named Ray Oldenburg. And he was talking about the importance of places outside of work and home where people can come together, that are generally open. Anybody can come in, but where people can meet each other, form connections, but also there can be, it can give rise to civil engagement, and in some cases activism or community engagement. And there's been recently a fair amount of literature coming out saying there are fewer and fewer spaces. There's been a real decline in these spaces, particularly since COVID, but also with the economy being the way it is, people have less money for going out. They have the internet at home, so they stay at home, but that prevents people from face-to-face interactions. And I wanted to bring Niall on because he's been very much a part of helping to make these places wonderful places. So I wanted to bring him on, also get a cross-cultural perspective on this. So Niall, I'm so glad you're here with us today.
Yes, thanks. And I actually live in a part of Boston where I think the local community is very committed to maintaining those third spaces. And for a city that has a Dunkin' Donuts on every corner, I will say that there's like 2, 3, or 4 spots before Dunkin' Donuts that you can go and have a sit down and a coffee before you get to the nearest Dunks, which is 5 or 10 minutes away down by the local Target. Yeah, so 3 or 4 spaces, and of course you can't sit down in a Dunks because it's basically a fast food place. But we have a superabundance of sit down coffee places here, so I think maybe we're bucking the trend of there being fewer third spaces. But yeah, it's a really fun part of town.
So I know we have trivia nights here, but I don't think they're as common as they are in the UK. You call them pub quizzes, but they seem to be gaining in some popularity around here. We've got several here down in Bentonville, and I know that there are a few that are popping up in Chicago. And you've always been the master of trivia and that sort of thing. What are you finding to be the case? Are you finding an increased participation in the quiz nights that you're running?
Yes. So I host for a series of quizzes in Framingham, Massachusetts. Sometimes I'm a backup host there, and it's at a big brewery in Framingham, Jack Sabby. It's run by a large bearded chap called Andrew McCahey, and he's an extremely hairy man. But I've hosted his trivia, and I did one maybe 6 months ago, a year ago, at a local pub in Roslindale that didn't get much foot traffic, and they only had like 2 or 3 teams coming, and so that was a bit disappointing. But in Framingham, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I had 21 teams.
Whoa,
it's enormous. And this last one, I was there yesterday, 15 teams. And yeah, when you're tallying up all the team scores between rounds, I basically had to be like a human calculator. It was like there's not even enough time to write everything down in Excel. You kind of had to scribble. So yeah, I think trivia is having a moment. Possibly because of television. I mean, we have the Jamie Ding, the long-term Jeopardy champion, who's kind of gotten a bit of a following, and just won $1 million with Ben Affleck, or was it Matt Damon? Or it was either Ben Affleck or Matt Damon on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So trivia is kind of creating kind of superstars on telly, and I think that's kind of bleeding over into trivia as a leisure activity. And the other quiz I do is a local cafe here in Boston, and we actually do call it a pub quiz because it was originally run by a British bloke who a British expat who has since moved to Italy, but it was his idea, and he invented this themed quiz and specifically called it a pub quiz, and now four of us do it. But his story is an interesting one because not only did he run that quiz at the Square Root Cafe, but he also was one of the people behind there's a small sort of plaza behind where the cafe is, and there's basically been a big project to turn it into a little bit of a public space with seating, and sometimes there's activities there, and sometimes sort of outdoor food trucks and stuff. So it's a little bit of an outdoor third space that didn't exist before, but that he was one of the kind of brains behind implementing. So yeah, we as a neighborhood, I think, pay a lot of attention to our third spaces that maybe other neighborhoods don't.
Well, in today's day and age, it seems like everybody is just so divided, right? We like to tell people on this show and on my other shows too that, get to know people, get to know your neighbors. And how well do you think like these, like, for example, the trivia nights or any of these kind of gatherings, how well, in your opinion, do you think it brings people together?
I think very well, actually. There's another chap, Tico, who runs one of the quizzes, and he's able to use the quizzes to advertise salsa nights that he runs down the road, and everybody goes to those. And he's kind of involved in tons and tons of events. So, once you get one event, you start hearing about others, and it kind of just snowballs into this marvelous expression of community. So I think there is a knock-on effect, and I think it's very good. And I'm happy to say that even though I live in a large city, we're on pretty friendly terms with our neighbors. My wife just, for example, was able to get our neighbors to do some cat sitting while we're away soon. So, and that's not something that everybody has in a big city, I think. So,
yeah, absolutely. What do you think? I mean, both of you, I'd like to get your take on this. I think a lot of people I'm hearing a lot of people saying they don't have the money to go out anymore. they would like to be able to go out, but they simply don't have the money to afford. They're even saying that, for example, Gen Z is drinking less in part because they simply can't afford to drink. And so what happens when there are fewer and fewer options for going out, meeting people, being in public together, but where you don't have to pay for anything, or if you do, it's not you're not paying a lot for it, because even beers. I mean, I remember back in the mid 2000s, you could still get a $2 PBR. Not that I would want to drink it, but the point is that you could have something, and that does not exist anymore. It doesn't even exist anymore for a cup of coffee. I mean, we used to talk about that, and 25 cents would get you a cup of coffee. Now it's what, $5 for a cup of coffee?
Yeah, I think there is an economic argument, and things have become quite a bit more expensive. Even in Wisconsin, a PBR costs $4 now. I remember when I moved to Wisconsin, you could get one still for $2.75. Not anymore. So yeah, and with tariffs, I think coffee was one of the first things to be affected by tariffs being introduced. So yeah, that's a serious problem. Like, no matter how much effort you make, people are going to be priced out, because sure enough, there's tons of layoffs and wages aren't going up anytime soon. So yeah, everything's interconnected.
Yeah, it seems like you have to be creative when it comes to your gatherings and stuff like that. I see a lot more people in the parks around here in Chicago, like organizations setting up music events or any kind of like things for kids and stuff, and bringing the parents together, and but yeah, you're right. I blame the hipsters for the PBR thing too. They're the ones that drove up the prices, so we can point our ire at those people and their
gentrification of light beer.
Exactly. So you stay away from our cheap beer. It's cheap beer for a reason. But right. Yeah. I mean, I grew up, down south, and there was like, you had your karaoke nights, you have your trivia nights, but you also had your karaoke nights a lot of times. And you had like, affordable drinks, and you could get people together and they sing, some of them off key, well, most of them off key, but it's still just a fun gathering of getting everybody together. And yeah, you really do have to get creative, especially in this economy these days.
Another thing that I've saw. Oh, sorry, no, I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh, I was just going to say karaoke's another thing. Yeah, there's 2 karaoke nights that I know of very locally, and then another one down the road. So that's 3 per week. And I was going to say something else, but I forgot it. So carry on.
Well, I was just going to say, now, one of the things that I have seen, and this has been very distressing, and it's been weaponized, and that is the emergence of tent cities in public parks. I particularly have seen it quite a bit in Chicago. And for those of you who don't know, Chicago, when after the fire and Daniel Burnham came in to, did the planning there, part of the Chicago plan, the Burnham plan for Chicago, was a lot of green space, because they absolutely wanted people to have relief from some of the really brutal aspects of industrialization. People were in factories and that sort of thing, their tenement houses. They wanted people to have relief. They wanted people to have access to green spaces. The beach was supposed to be forever free and clear, so people could enjoy the beach and enjoy the water and enjoy that. And what's happened over recent years is we've seen increased cases of people who don't have homes living and setting up tent cities in public parks in Chicago. And when people complain about it, you have holier than thou folks saying, well, you just don't like our unhoused neighbors and check your privilege. And the folks are saying, but this park is for the public. It's for the public recreation. It's not for people to set up housekeeping in. And this means we can't have our kids in this, in this park. We don't have that opportunity. And then again, holier than thou people say, well, you just don't like unhoused people. Go check your privilege. And meanwhile, people with actual privilege are off at their gated communities or their own large backyards, or at their private clubs or at their summer homes. And people get pitted against each other. And it does really concern me, because I don't want people to not to have homes. We absolutely need to house people and provide housing for people. That needs to be an absolute priority. But if folks don't want to, if the powers that be don't want to address that, they can shift the blame over on the people who are concerned about it and just throw up their hands and say, hey, we're letting people set up here and we're not going to be persecuting the unhoused population. And meanwhile, people get edged out of one of the few public spaces that is freely accessible. And so that's the kind of thing that I have been observing in Chicago for a while. And I think that it is an issue. The other thing that's happened is we've lost the indoor shopping mall. And for all that people liked to complain about them, I think a lot of people also miss them, because when the indoor shopping mall, the poor man who put together the indoor shopping mall, conceived of that idea, all he wanted was something that would approximate European open air markets, but climate controlled to respond to American weather. Now, it ended up being these places, these cesspits of these, major chain stores. Smaller merchants couldn't get in there. And eventually, with the internet and everything, it was a death knell. But you could go to the shop. Anybody could go into the shopping mall.
Yes, and a lot of them are now abandoned and gathering dust and appearing on liminal space subreddits and being used as horror film sets, and et cetera, et cetera. It's interesting that you say that, actually, because my oldest kid was staying with me like at the towards the end of June, and we did all the sort of tourist Boston stuff. We went to the MFA, we went to the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum, and we went to the Harvard Natural History Museum and did all of that sort of, and the aquarium and all of that stuff. But so my kid was with me when I went to get some British money exchanged, and the money exchange place is in Copley Place Mall in Back Bay, and that is definitely a rich person's mall. I mean, like it's like Coach bags is there, all the Gucci, Louis Vuitton shops, and basically anything that you would see at an airport duty free, except it's not an airport. And my kid was like, oh, this is definitely the mall for the extremely well-off individual. But the most fun that my kid had on the trip was going to a different mall, to Hot Topic in the hip and happening town of Braintree, Massachusetts, South Shore Plaza, I believe it was. So we went to Cheesecake Factory and we went to Hot Topic, and we had we went to various other places selling kind of Japanese pop culture figurines and things like that, and my kid had a whale of a time there in that mall, except for the time, except when we tried to leave to go and get the bus back. And this is a gripe I have in general, is the public transit system outside major cities is wildly inaccessible, and so my oldest kid is kind of very much into analog horror and the back rooms and all of that stuff, which is why I mentioned the liminal space subreddit, because we often talk about it. And we tried to get out of this mall by going into a Sears, which I didn't even realize still existed. And we were like, if we find our way out of this Sears, then I think the exit from the mall is there. And we went down, not in an elevator. Yeah, we went down the down escalator, and we saw a sign saying the up escalator is out of service. And there was nobody down there. It was just a bunch of washing machines in big cardboard boxes. So ton of cardboard boxes, nobody down there. We'd gone down, but we couldn't get back up. The elevator, when we eventually found it, was also out of service. And we found a side staircase that led to a locked door. And we were like, we can't get out of this. we're in the back rooms. We're trapped in a Sears at Braintree. We're going to die here. Eventually we did find a way out, but it led to a parking garage that we also couldn't get out of. So we had to go back in and get out. And the whole ordeal took us about 20 minutes. And my kid was scared because they thought, oh no, we've actually found our way into the back rooms. We're not in reality anymore. what's happening? So that was maybe the worst side of the mall experience. But the fact that, you know, I'm in South Boston, just off the end of the Orange Line, and we had to go all the way out to Braintree to find a proper mall. There's not very many good sort of working malls out there. And in Madison, Wisconsin, where I also spend a lot of time, I think there's maybe one big mall, East Town, that still has a lot of decent shops, and a lot of the other ones a lot of those shops have closed. So yeah, the state of the American in-person shopping experience is somewhat parlous, I would say.
Well, the fact that you guys got into that labyrinth and the Kafka-esque kind of a situation and couldn't get out indicates, it seems to me, that people just aren't down there enough. Aren't a lot of people there, because other people probably would have gotten caught in that themselves.
We honestly thought that we'd gone into a Sears from another time, from like 1972, and then it had stayed there, and that we weren't in 2026 anymore. You know?
Yeah, that is bizarre.
That's where you start looking for the cameras. You're like, all right, who's filming this? Who's doing an indie film here? Well, it seems like, especially now, it's harder to find those connections within an actual city, because a lot of people live in the suburbs and will come into the city for, you know, whatever kind of fun that they want to have. But it seems like the malls and stuff like that, you see more people getting together in the suburbs than you do in the city, right? I mean, is that kind of how you see it in Boston, or is it a different vibe there?
I'm not so sure. I feel like I live in a unique neighborhood, and so that colors my perspective. So I can't make that kind of comparison. I will say that sort of central Boston and inner city Boston, downtown Boston, just contains a lot of places that older, beardier me doesn't really want to go. For example, there was one time where a bunch of us wanted to go to karaoke downtown because a friend's sister was in town. So we went to this cafe, but it was clearly a student hangout, and it was wall to wall people in the room, and we couldn't even, we got in, but we couldn't even move. And I sort of, I looked at my friends and said, the amount of chlamydia in this room. No. But yeah, so we ran away from that, and then there are some other areas of Boston, like Kendall Square and the Seaport, that are just very anodyne and astringent and shiny and not very lived in, that we also shy away from. So yeah, we do very much stick to our little corner of Boston, our little suburb, because we have everything here. I mean, it reminds me of Herne Hill in London, in terms of how walkable it is and how nice it is. And we do have a small amount of green space here as well. We've got we've got a village square. There's a farmer's market in it every week, and there are odds, occasional free events, like musical events. And so we do get that. And we do also have my wife has just leant over and said we have a large arboretum here as well, which is another kind of big gathering place. So if you have no money, you can always go and take a nice walk around the arbo and possibly be eaten by a coyote. But yeah.
Have you, I mean, just out of curiosity, Niall, have you spoken to people who maybe are regulars at your events? Have they mentioned being able to make new connections to you about that, or have you observed that?
Oh yeah, I mean, well, I have, through going to these events, through attending these events, I have maybe 20 people that 20, 30 people that I now recognize by name and can say hi to in the street.
Good.
And so, yeah, we have that whole big small town thing going on, that which is great. But I will also say that I'm a little bit of an oddball. I'm one of those people that likes going to places alone and just starting conversations with whoever's up for it. And that's not, especially now, that's not really much of a common thing. I used to do it in pubs and bars, but I don't really drink anymore, so I do it in coffee shops now instead.
Nice. Yeah, and probably a lot cheaper too.
That's another reason I think why younger people don't go out, is not just because they can't afford it, but because I think that alcohol consumption is more more frowned upon these days. I think a lot of younger people have maybe seen the effects of alcohol on their own families and have decided, I don't really want that for me. So
I think that alcohol use intensified during the COVID lockdowns. And definitely. I remember hearing from people who were working in retail stores and said, boy, you all are drinking a lot of wine. These were like grocery stores, not liquor stores. But and I think that for many people, people have kind of pulled back. The other thing, though, I'll say is down here in Arkansas, a lot of bars have an extensive mocktail menu. That's partly because we're in the Bible Belt and a lot of folks don't drink, but they've come up with some very inventive drinks. And then some of them are here. The mocktail menus include the mushrooms they're like lion's manes and cordyceps and that sort of thing. They're actually using mushroom tinctures to make them functional beverages. It's been an interesting phenomenon.
You fed me some of that at your house.
Yes, in your coffee. Yes,
I've had a Lainie mediated mushroom drink.
Well, they have the THC infused drinks now too, that a lot, you see, like smoking cigarettes has really kind of gone the way of the dodo. You rarely see that anymore, where it's now people using vapes or people using edibles and stuff like that. But like for social gatherings, a lot of times they'll have these THC infused drinks that they'll use in place of alcohol, because for one thing, you don't get a massive hangover from it the next day. And when you're imbibing it, actually, depending on the person, a lot of times you seem to be a lot more social without that that angry edge that sometimes people tend to get when they do drink alcohol.
It's very much a lottery. Will the first sip loosen you up, or will it make you snappish? But with those THC drinks, it's always going to loosen you up. I personally don't partake of them because they just make me kind of grind to a halt. So instead of being social, I'll just sort of sit there with a vacant grin on my face.
Niall, you and I are like that. It for some reason, a cannabis turns me into a slug, and not necessarily in a good way. I just sit there and turn into an absolute slug. So I stay away from that. But but they do sell them down here too. I mean, they sell them just about everywhere in Bentonville. You can find one of those drinks. Niall, if somebody was interested in trying to support a third space situation, could you offer some suggestions for somebody maybe who wants to approach a cafe or a coffee house or even a park district building or something like that, for getting something like a trivia night or a pub quiz night going?
Honestly, a lot of these places, these small places, the owner is right there. I mean, if I go into the square root, chances are 50% of the time the owner will be walking around. So these people are quite accessible. So if you're feeling, I'm trying to think of an adjective that applies to the word chutzpah, but if you're feeling like you have a lot of chutzpah, then you should definitely just say, hey, are there any vacancies for events here? And then the owner might well hook you up. The thing with trivia nights is that if there are lots of venues in a given place, then you might not get very many people coming to yours. That's definitely because Roslindale has so many third spaces that they tried to do a new trivia night at a pub that was kind of just away from the main drag, and that was the one nobody came to. So
okay.
But yeah, libraries will have community events. Our local library has a stipulation that they do have to be free and open to the public. So
okay.
they can't be restricted in any way, and they can't be any kind of entry fee. But as long as it's a free session that everybody can attend, they will entertain the idea at Boston Public Library anyway. But yeah, that was as a result of me inquiring about having the final stage of a trivia competition there, but it wasn't open to everybody. And because it wasn't open to everybody, they said we can't do it. So yeah, you can go to a freer space like a library, but you have to have a free and fully open event in mind, at least in Boston. It might not be the case elsewhere.
And what about publicizing events? Do you guys you use social media? Is it mostly word of mouth? Do you have flyers, QR codes?
Roslindale is a small enough, tight-knit enough community that you can do it via word of mouth. If there is a social media that gets used, it's Instagram on the Square Roots Instagram. I find that Facebook has less and less value these days, to be honest.
Okay.
It used to be really good for doing this kind of thing, but I think it no longer is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Instagram's the best one for me. I am a Blue Sky and Twitter refusenik. So.
All right. Well, Niall, thank you so much for taking time out of your day.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, man.
I'm just glad I got to tell that Sears story. That was
no, that's awesome. I mean, but I mean, it's a great story, but on so many levels, it just kind of shows the disinterest in basic building security.
Well, they had that. What was it, the Backrooms movie that came out not too long ago, and it was a pretty big hit. So huge hit. You may be onto something there. You may have a movie script right on your hands there, man.
Yeah, the Backrooms documentary this time.
Yeah.
Let's go to the Sears in Braintree. Ooh.
From Sears to Tears, the Backrooms. How it scared the hell out of me and my kid. Yeah.
Oh, dear me. All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Niall. And I'll be seeing you soon.
Indeed.
Appreciate it, Niall. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Sears are closed now too. So,
well, you know how they got taken out, right? They had a hedge fund manager named Eddie Lampert took over the company. And through shenanigans, basically they were bleeding money everywhere. But the biggest holdings that they had was their real estate. I mean, they had huge real estate portfolio all over the place. So what he did is his hedge fund kept on bailing Sears out, and all of the money he was loaning to Sears came from his hedge fund, and it was secured with Sears real estate. So when everything just imploded, well, he had all the real estate. And there it was.
I thought it was investing all those years in those paper catalogs. That's a lot of cash.
That was.
Those things are thick too.
I mean, they were the Wish book.
Yeah, like a Chicago phone book. Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah.
That was good having him on there. And
those
tips.
Some good tips.
And it is good to get away from like your home and your workplace. A lot of prices of things kind of inhibit that for a lot of people, but if you're creative enough and you have a good imagination, sometimes you can find places like that where you least expect it too. So,
and in terms, we've talked about in the show about the lack of trust between people that's sprung up because of AI and being online and being removed from each other. And when you can make the habit of actually trying to get out, being around other people like that, you get to know your neighbors, you get to know folks, and that can maybe start to reinvigorate some of those bonds again.
No, it would be good. Let's move on to the prize keepers and some word to the wise about some of these things you may be purchasing. that could, end up being deadly. As a 3-year-old girl dies after getting her head stuck in a kitchen playset. And there it is right there. That's the playset. So a 3-year-old girl in Florida died days after she had her head stuck in a kitchen playset and became unresponsive, authorities said this week. The incident occurred in Boynton Beach last month while the toddler and her sibling were at a babysitter's house, according to the police. The girl and her sibling were in the care of the babysitter's spouse at the time after the babysitter had left the residence, police said, citing preliminary information. During this time, the spouse remained upstairs as the children played downstairs, periodically checking on the children and giving them snacks. The police department said the spouse went down to check on the children and found the 3-year-old girl with her head stuck in a kitchen playset. The police department released that photo of the playset involved the death of a toddler July 27th, 2026 in Boynton Beach, Florida. The wooden kitchen playset had been purchased off Facebook Marketplace a few years ago, according to the police. The police department released a photo of the playset involved in the incident on Wednesday, noting it has no identifying markings indicating its brand, make, or model. The toddler's sibling advised that the child's toys had fallen into the kitchen playset when they attempted to retrieve the toys and became stuck. The child was not breathing. The spouse removed the child and began performing life-saving measures until first responders arrived shortly after 11 a.m. local time. The child was transported to a local hospital in critical condition. She was pronounced dead on July 27th. The investigation remains ongoing and no charges have been filed at this time. Authorities did not say how long the child is believed to have been stuck. The name of the toddler and her cause and manner of death have also not been released. And a lot of times when you have these, elaborate setups like that, they're cool and interesting, but you got to make sure that they're safe. And even, I'm not necessarily blaming the parents or anybody involved, but you have to figure in the kids are very, very curious.
Yeah.
Right. They're going to poke their heads, their arms and legs in all these places. And you got to make sure that those things are safe for them.
Yeah, and I know that they said it was purchased on Facebook Marketplace. I was looking around, I was checking out the store, and I'm figuring out, where's the recall on this item? Well, it's, it isn't clear. It was bought off of Facebook Marketplace. It does not have any branding information. It could have been made by somebody. Somebody decided the way it's pretty elaborate, kind of cute little thing, but it clearly was not necessarily made to any kind of normal safety standards. That stuff is usually checked. Not saying it's by no means perfect, because there are other recalls that happen. There are deadly things that happen. But when you're buying children's stuff online, particularly secondhand, you have no idea what kind of standards that item was made under. So it's something to be aware of. I know that, I think there are some online marketplaces that refuse to allow the sale of baby items or children, some children's items. Like, for example, car seats. You're not supposed to resell them. The reason is because they're only certified for one use, one crash. If there's a crash, the integrity of the car seat is compromised, it's done. But with things like this, particularly if it's handmade or it's antique or it's older, it was made in a different country, you don't know what standards it was made in. So I wanted to include it just as a sad reminder to folks that when you have these kinds of items, these are not items that you should have for children. Right. Invest in recently made stuff that's been made to safety standards. Very tragic case.
Yeah. And even if it's deemed safe or whatever, always check it out yourselves too. Because every child is different, different size children, playing and whatnot, and just make sure that it's safe for your kids.
Yeah.
Much like your foods, from the people that brought you the poopy lettuce. We got poopy jalapenos, sort of.
Pukey peppers.
The Taylor Farms recalls jalapeno products at Walmart and Target over salmonella risk. Oh boy. So Taylor Farms, the agricultural giant whose lettuce has been linked to the deadly Cyclospora outbreak, is recalling several prepared products made with jalapenos amid a salmonella outbreak linked to the peppers. The products, which include pico de gallo salsa and guacamole, were distributed to national retailers, including Walmart and Target, in 26 states, the company said in a statement Sunday. Taylor Farms said it isn't aware of any reported illnesses linked to the products. Taylor Farms said it voluntarily recalled the prepared foods after Coast Citrus Distributors, which had provided the company with its peppers, recalled its fresh jalapenos due to salmonella concerns. A grower in the Sinaloa, Mexico, that supplies the Coast Citrus Distributors was identified as the potential source in this outbreak, the company said. Taylor Fresh Foods is no longer sourcing products from this farmer and will be filling orders from alternative suppliers. Salmonella can cause diarrhea, fever, and stomach cramps within 8 to 72 hours after exposure, according to the Mayo Clinic, which said most healthy people recover within days to a week without treatment. The products have a best if used by date through August 16th, Taylor Farms added. So, of course, consumers should discard recalled products. Walmart said safety is the top priority for the retailer. When notified of recalls, we move swiftly to remove the impacted products from our stores and implement a sales block at our registers and online, the company told CBS News. We're working closely with our supplier and customers who have this should discontinue use. I would say that would probably be the right thing to do. In a statement, Trader Joe's said it was recalling 668 packages of Fiesta salad with shrimp because the product contains salsa that may have been prepared with recalled jalapeno peppers. The retailer advised customers to throw out the product or return it to any Trader Joe's location for a refund. Taylor Farms also urged customers to throw away any of the recalled items. Refunds are available at the location of purchase. Whole Foods told CBS News it has pulled all the recalled items from its shelves. Nothing matters more to us than our customer safety, the grocery chain said. Customers who purchased any of these products from us should throw them away and contact us for a refund. So Stop and Shop said 2 of its products were affected by the recall, a chicken wrap and a pico de gallo salsa. Discard, return, get a refund, that sort of thing. So this is a list of the recalled products. This is at Hannaford. Diced jalapenos, rice and bean burrito, pico de gallo salsa. Again, this is all the show notes are going to be on our show notes here on our Substack, so you can read these for yourself too. Kroger with private selection spicy roast beef sandwich, spicy Jarlsberg dip, spicy pimento cheese dip, and then Target has taco dip. All the UPC codes are here too. So mango pico de gallo, spicy guacamole, and the list goes on here. So, jalapenos get a bad rep for doing things to the tummy. The last thing you want to do is add salmonella to the mix, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is a little distressing to see that, these are very commonplace items. And just seeing what's happening to the food supply is disheartening, to say the least.
Yeah, shredded lettuce, jalapenos. I mean, I eat all that stuff too. In fact, I had jalapenos the last few days. So
have I. Rotel is like my thing. I mean, I make big batches of chili with that.
Love the Rotel. Love the Rotel.
And I'm really sad to see that their Jarlsberg cheese dip has been affected by it, because Jarlsberg makes the best cheese dip.
Yeah. And when you affect our cheese dips, you attack America. And that's very unpatriotic. Those are the real terrorists. Meanwhile, fungus among us, cases of potentially deadly fungus detected in 27 states. CDC data shows what to know. So cases of a potentially deadly fungus have been detected in 27 states so far this year, according to data from the Centers for Disease Control. That's the CDC. As of the week ending July 25th, there have been 3,437 cases of Candida auris identified. This is about 1,000 fewer cases than the 4,290 figure detected at the same time last year. California has recorded the most cases with 873, followed by Texas with 433 and Tennessee with 283. An incoming number of cases does not mean the fungus is transmitting at a more rapid pace than usual. The CDC says the rate of CRS cases continue to rise each year, but the rate of increase has slowed since 2022. So CRS is a type of yeast that can cause severe illness and spreads easily among those who are very ill in healthcare facilities, according to the CDC. It can cause a wide range of infections, from skin infections to more severe life-threatening infections, such as bloodstream infections. CRS was first discovered in 1996 by Korean researchers and formally identified in Japan in 2009 as a new species. Patients who are infected and those who have the fungus in their skin or other body areas without symptoms can spread CRS. The fungus can live on surfaces and objects such as doorknobs and bed rails for a long time and spread to patients. Most healthy people do not need to worry about CRS infections, experts have previously said. However, those with weakened immune systems or who are immunocompromised are at risk of hard-to-treat infections. Additionally, nursing home patients and hospital patients who have or have had lines of tubes in their body, such as a catheter or breathing tube, are also at high risk. Several strains of CRS infections are resistant to at least one type of antifungal medication, if not several. A CDC analysis published earlier this year of 8,000 or over 8,000 CRS samples in 2022 and 23 found that more than 95% were resistant to fluconazole, a first-line antifungal treatment. 15% were resistant to the prescription antifungal medication amphotericin B. 1% were resistant to the antifungal medication echinocandins. I'm butchering all these names. Just I'm glad you people
fancy.
Can read.
Yeah, fancy words.
They're fancy, stupid names. And fewer than 1% were resistant to all three. Most infections can be treated with echinocandins or candins, according to the CDC. Studies are limited, but the mortality rate of CRS is estimated to be between 30 and 60%. Most patients who contract CRS were already ill when patients with CRS die. It's hard to know how much CRS contributed to their death compared to other pre-existing illnesses, according to the CDC. So, yeah, especially if you're in these situations, like you're in the hospital or something like that, hopefully none of that happens to you, because that doesn't sound like a good time at all there, Lainie.
No, and those fungal infections are really, really difficult sometimes. I think people don't realize that fungi, they're their own classification. I mean, they're it's not, they're not really a vegetable. I mean, we treat mushrooms as if they're vegetables, but they're not really a vegetable. And I've heard it said that they're closer to on the animal side of things. And this, it gets really creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just,
and they can take over your brains, like in that what was that TV show?
Last of Us.
Yeah. I mean, they just
well, no, then you see the insects where they take over the, they take over an insect's brain, the larvae, they get into the insects. And then sometimes you'll see like the fungus will animate a corpse of an insect and it's crawling around. It's clearly an ex insect, but it's still trotting around and it's very unnerving.
I think that's what's been happening to some of our politicians lately, but I digress. As we get to the recurring tide and me soul on fire, feeling hot, hot, hot. Remember that song? Well, yeah. July was the hottest month in the history of contiguous U.S. breaking Dust Bowl record. Yay, breaking those records.
Yeah, yes.
While Trump continues his war on renewables and support for climate-wrecking fossil fuels, the contiguous United States endured the hottest July on record, according to data released Monday by his own government. July 2026 averaged 76.9 degrees Fahrenheit, the warmest month on record. That's between 1895 to the present. NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, announced those figures. That figure was 3.3 degrees Fahrenheit above the 20th century average. This was the warmest July and warmest month in the 132-year record, 0.1 to 0.2 degrees warmer than July 1936 and July 2012. I remember that 2012. That was extremely hot. And we had temperatures in the hundreds in New York. It was very unusual. The AP highlighted that last month's average for the lower 48 eclipsed the Dust Bowl's July 1936 by 1/8 of a degree, a development that meteorologist Jeff Masters of Yale Climate Connections described as alarming. It's not good when you're breaking records from the Dust Bowl, which we are in this case, he told the AP. And that was a crazy sort of situation where you put tens of millions of people in motion. You had this great migration because of the drought and the heat that hit the center of the U.S., just a cataclysmic event in U.S. history. If we're exceeding records from the Dust Bowl, then that says we're in deep trouble. Separately, Masters and fellow meteorologist Bob Henson wrote at Yale Climate Connections that there's no denying the scorching conditions of the 1930s Dust Bowl. An impressive 24 of the 48 contiguous U.S. states have yet to exceed the single hottest readings observed in each of those states during the 30s. However, the Dust Bowl has been misused for years in climate denial writing and speaking to argue that human activity isn't warming the nation's climate to any great degree. In fact, human influence played a vast part in the Dust Bowl itself, they explain. Decades of overplowing by European settlers in the plains and Midwest in the erroneous belief that rain follows the plow left the landscape vulnerable when a sequence of multi-year droughts struck. Huge volumes of topsoil simply blew away, and the denuded land heated up far more quickly than better managed land would have. The Dust Bowl intersected with the Great Depression to make the 1930s a period of profound misery for millions of Americans. A 2022 study, How the Great Plains Dust Bowl Drought Spread Heat Extremes Around the Northern Hemisphere, showed how the Dust Bowl's physical influence extended well beyond U.S. borders, the pair added. As lead author Gerald Meal of the National Center for Atmospheric Research put it, this is a mechanism that arose in a unique way from human influence, not by burning fossil fuels, but from plowing up the middle third of the United States. Wildfires broke out across Canada and in the U.S. Pacific Northwest last month, burning over 140,000 acres in Oregon alone. NOAA found that daytime maximum temperatures averaged 89.5 degrees Fahrenheit, about 2.9 degrees above average, ranking of the sixth warmest month on record for average high temperatures, while overnight minimum temperatures averaged 64.2 degrees, 3.7 degrees above average, ranking as the warmest month on record for average low temperatures, surpassing July by 0.7 degrees Fahrenheit. So those high temperatures overnight can be dangerous. Masters told the AP that if you're talking heat waves, that nighttime low is incredibly important for determining total heat stress. So if it doesn't cool off at night, your body doesn't have time to readjust to all the heat. Well, July set a new record in the U.S. because of the fossil fuel-driven climate crisis, or at least in part. This may be one of the coolest years we're going to experience for the rest of our lives, the meteorologist also said. He added that humanity needs to stop burning so many fossil fuels. We also need to be spending money to adapt to the new climate that we've put in place. Yes. We were talking earlier about these storms, particularly in Illinois, where for the most part, southern Illinois, being part of that tornado alley down there, would see, storms every year. But now you're starting to see more of them come up here to Chicago. And one of the reasons that is you have these heat domes that have been more frequent than usual this summer, and hot weather like that contributes to these dangerous storms that people see in these areas.
Yeah, it is. It's everything all at once. It's just multiple things happening at once. The thing with the Dust Bowl was very concerning to me. I remember a few years back there was a horrific dust storm in central Illinois, it turned out to be deadly. It was a lot of traffic, and it caused a traffic pileup, which was absolutely devastating. There's obviously concerns about the food supply. We've already got concerns about the food supply with the integrity of it, since we're getting, pukey peppers and booty lettuce. And so this is multiple things happening at once. It's one thing to handle crises one at a time. When you've got multiple crises happening, and now we have a tax on local governments that can impede the ability to communicate about these things, not good.
Yeah, and it wasn't too long ago this year, there was like some dust storms coming out of I believe Iowa or Kansas too. Yeah, and the Dust Bowls timed out around the time of the Great Depression too. Probably didn't help matters as much. Probably people thought the apocalypse was happening. What's next? The locusts, are they coming too? That sort of thing.
Yeah, and the locusts, by the way, that did happen in the U.S. It happened in Minnesota. It was chronicled by Laura Ingalls Wilder in her Little House on the Prairie book, specifically on the banks of Plum Creek. She sanitized it. It was absolutely devastating. And I would not be surprised, even in the age of insecticides, that we could see something else where, hey, nature just takes over. And there's not much we can do about it.
And nature has a tendency to adapt to the things that we do too. So, stay frosty when it comes to that stuff. Meanwhile, how confident are Americans in the midterm elections' fairness and accuracy? Me personally, I have zero my confidence is probably about 6 feet below me at this point. So a narrow majority of Americans, 55%, are confident that this November's midterm elections will be conducted fairly and accurately, down from 61% ahead of the 2024 elections, 64% in 2022, and 59% in 2020. Confidence in the fairness and accuracy of elections is lower than in past years, but with no partisan gap. Yeah, everybody, it seems like everybody is just like saying, I have no confidence. But in contrast to those earlier years, Americans' views don't differ substantially by party today, even as Republicans and Democrats express different concerns about elections. Among Republicans and Republican-leaning independents, 55% now say they have confidence the upcoming midterms will be conducted fairly and accurately. To which I reply, "Oh, you sweet summer child." This is up from 47% in the summer of 24 and 46 in the summer of 22. Biden was president in both years, but it is lower than in the spring of 2020 during Trump's first term and in the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic. Among Democrats and Democratic leaners, 58% now express confidence in the fairness and accuracy of this year's elections. Confidence today is substantially lower than in 2024, which was at 77%, and 2022 at 81%. Confidence remains higher than in April 2020, when 46% of Democrats expressed confidence the U.S. 2020 election would be conducted fairly and accurately. The new Pew Research Center survey of 3,554 adults was conducted between July 6th and 12th. Survey also finds that 66% of Americans overall are very or somewhat confident that all citizens who want to vote this November will be able to cast ballots. Republicans have long been more likely than Democrats to express confidence on this question, but the partisan gap was narrower in 2024 and 2022 than it is today. 83% of Republicans now say they are very or somewhat confident that all citizens who want to vote in November will be able to do so. And far fewer Democrats express a similar level of confidence at 53%. So there are the numbers there. However, the partisan gap was even wider in 2020 in April than it is today. At the time, 87% of Republicans and fewer than half of the Democrats, 43%, expressed confidence, and 2/3 of Americans, including 80% of Democrats, thought it was very or somewhat likely that the COVID-19 pandemic would significantly disrupt Americans' ability to vote that November. And there's more here, but basically, it's when you had one thing in particular that struck me was the Department of Homeland Security mentioning a few months back that that ICE agents could be patrolling these voting precincts while things are happening. So while that may not actually affect the vote itself, it may actually affect who's actually getting in to vote. And what, you know, whether people get arrested or whatever, or even are just dismayed and just don't want to deal with the hassle, that affects elections as well. And you know, when you have politicians that haven't exactly been delivering on their campaign promises, which has been a thing for a long time, it seems nowadays there's more and more distrust in these politicians to do that. So a lot of people are just like, well, they'll either they'll just go independent, get away from the parties altogether, or they just won't vote, period.
Yeah, we can't even trust politicians to verify whether they're alive or not.
Yeah, right. You know, they had
and we can't trust their party to do that. I mean, come on.
Well, you had McConnell. There was a story I saw the other day where they said Mitch McConnell was he was out of rehab and back at his place. Nobody saw him go in. And then when people were coming out of his home and they were asked, you know, what's going on with him, they were like tight-lipped. They weren't saying a word. Yeah, just like the old Soviet Union, where it was we won't tell you about how sick our leaders are. You'll just find a new leader and you'll go, oh, okay,
all right, and there you go, and there it is. And again, I keep on saying, all they have to do is let the governor of Kentucky go visit him. This could be very easily resolved.
Snap a picture, do a selfie with him and Mitch, but you know, they're not gonna let that happen. That would be crazy town. Then you'd actually get some proof of life, or actually lack thereof, I would say. Meanwhile, the IRS employee union has joined the fight against Trump's slush fund. I don't know who that is. It's weird.
Yeah.
A union hugs and drugs. A union representing IRS employees has joined a lawsuit to block a 1.776 really 1776 come on $1.776 billion slush fund for Trump's political allies and to prevent the president and his family from achieving immunity from tax audits. At its core, this case is about protecting the integrity of the federal civil service and employees, said Doreen Greenwald, national president of the National Treasury Employees Union. NTEU is joining this lawsuit to make it clear IRS employees should never be forced to choose between following a political directive to keep their job and following the law and their oath to the Constitution. That's the story right there. The organization joins former January 6th federal prosecutor Andrew Floyd, Professor Jonathan Caravello, the City of New Haven, Connecticut, the National Abortion Federation, and Common Cause as plaintiffs in Andrew Floyd versus U.S. Department of Justice. Democracy Forward is litigating the case. The action was filed in May after the IRS agreed to settle the president's $10 million lawsuit against the agency for leaked tax documents. The settlement included establishment of an anti-weaponization fund that the president could use to pay January 6 rioters, anti-abortion protesters, and others of his supporters investigated, indicted, convicted, or sued for civil or criminal misconduct before Trump returned to office. And the deal would permanently shield the president and his family from investigations into their business dealings. But U.S. District Judge Lainie Brinkema in Virginia issued a temporary restraining order May 29th, barring the administration from creating or using the fund. She solidified that decision with a June 12th order suspending any development of the fund as the lawsuit continues. Those decisions were followed by a July 13th ruling by U.S. District Judge Kathleen Williams in Miami, calling the Trump versus IRS settlement a sham designed from the beginning to be settled in order to create the slush fund and tax audit immunity deals. And because this fact was so obvious and so insurmountable, the court finds that this matter was brought for an improper purpose to gain the imprimatur imprimatur of judicial legitimacy. There's another fancy word for you there.
That's it was something that the Vatican will put on literature that it approves of.
Well, we got a Chicago Pope in there, so I guess we can let it slide for now. Of judicial legitimacy for a settlement that had no viable basis in law or fact, Williams wrote, as was observed in another matter brought in this district, this case is part of Mr. Trump's pattern of misusing the courts to serve political purposes. Democracy Forward announced that Floyd v. DOJ was amended August 6th to argue the deal acting Attorney General Todd Blanche negotiated for the president is illegal and unconstitutional. Wow, that's a shock. Well, you never hear those people put together like that. Trump and illegal and unconstitutional. Yeah. Under the immunity order, career IRS employees will be forced to terminate ongoing audits of the president and his businesses, giving the president a lucrative and unconstitutional emolument. That would be unprecedented under any circumstance. It is all the more remarkable considering that the president profited an eye-popping $2.2 billion after returning to the White House, the group says. The suit further notes that Blanche was nominated for Attorney General just 3 weeks after giving the order to create the slush fund and establish tax audit immunity. A little quid pro quo there. The scheme is an unprecedented, unlawful, and breathtakingly corrupt attempt by the president and members of his cabinet to manipulate the legal process and laws intended to prevent political interference to achieve benefits that Trump and his political allies could not have obtained lawfully, according to the suit. In the meantime, Blanche and other administration officials have refused to provide sworn statements that they have complied with the court's ruling on the slush fund and audit immunity. The acting attorney general cannot tell the public the slush fund is dead while preserving every legal mechanism necessary to resurrect it at a moment's notice. Democracy Forward President Sky Perryman said, this amended complaint shows that despite repeated public claims that the slush fund has been rescinded, the administration has refused to dismantle the agreement that created it and refused to foreclose bringing it back. Blanche was confirmed by the Senate by a 1-vote margin as Attorney General Saturday morning. 2 Republican senators had demanded Blanche to put in writing a pledge that the fund is not moving forward, period. Blanche did that after days of negotiation, but his statement does not prohibit Trump from seeking to revive the matter in court, nor does Blanche's written pledge stop his order that gives Trump and his family broad immunity from any government review. Yeah. So, and that's just the pattern that Trump's been doing, making money in office, manipulating markets with the Iran war, these tariffs, and whatnot. And nobody's going to stop him. It doesn't seem like.
No. And, we've seen it now with the whole Truth Social giving early access for a very large amount of money every month. It's ongoing and it's happening right under our noses. And I think that this is deliberate. It's almost taunting, saying, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. And that's how he is. He's like, he lives and dies by the courts, right? If he does something, it's like, take me to court. And a lot of times these people have taken him to court and have won. But that hasn't stopped him. He's just
you can't enforce it. The courts, they in a lot of these in civil cases, the courts have some power, but ultimately, it's usually on the plaintiff in these situations to enforce it. The court can give tools for this, but it takes time and effort and money.
Yeah,
to enforce these courts stuff.
I think he knows that these courts are very slow too, so he'll continue to do this until like some actual impeachment type stuff comes along, and I wouldn't hold your breath on that anytime soon. But speaking of hold, says, you like that segue? Ahold says Snap. I think that's how you say it. Ahold says snap cuts are slowing U.S. sales growth.
Yeah, snap. Imagine that.
While the rich get richer, the poor still get nothing. So Ahold Delhaize said cuts to Snap reduce the company's U.S. sales growth in the second quarter and will have an ongoing impact through 2026. The company reported U.S. comparable store sales gains of 0.8% for the second quarter and net sales gains of 1.4% to about $15 billion at constant exchange rates. Other factors that are slowing sales growth relative to a year ago included lower egg prices and pharmacy pricing changes related to the Inflation Reduction Act. The reduction in SNAP benefits cut sales growth by 40 basis points in the quarter and are expected to have impact of between 60 and 80 basis points for the full year, the company said. The new SNAP work requirements took effect on March 1st, with full enforcement beginning on June 1st. SNAP sales account for about 5.3% of Ahold Delhaize's total sales in the U.S., the company said. The SNAP cuts, pharmacy pricing challenges, reduced egg prices, and a calendar shift together combined to reduce sales growth about 1.7% in the quarter. Underneath these factors, our competitive position remains strong, said Yolanda Poots, Chief Financial Officer, in a conference call with Analysis. We gained market share across most of our U.S. brands, demonstrating the resilience of our growth model and the relevance of our customer propositions, along with some other corporate jingo. U.S. operating income was up 0.2% at constant exchange rates in the quarter to about $596 million. Underlying operating income fell 2.6%, and underlying operating margins were down 0.2%. However, which the company attributed to price investments, higher utility costs, and indirect impacts from higher energy prices. Much of the conversation in the earnings call focused on analysis questions about price competition in the U.S., as several grocery operators have reported price-cutting initiatives. Franz Muller, president and CEO, described the pricing environment as rather rational, however, and said the company was confident in its own pricing strategy. He cited the sales gains at Stop & Shop, where the company had been heavily promoting price cuts, as an example, noting sales gains at the banner and a record high net promoter score of 79%. This goes on here with more numbers and stuff, but basically, yeah, cutting SNAP, not a good idea for grocery stores and a lot of businesses who take SNAP payments like that. And again, it just seems like collective punishment. The government doesn't, in Trump in particular, doesn't seem to care about poor people. I think he probably just wants to eradicate them by starving them to death. But that's my own personal opinion. I'm sure others share that opinion. I'm just saying that is my opinion.
Or tormenting them. I mean, it's, blood and circuses, people get to see poor people being tormented. And they like that, and that works. I mean, you don't necessarily want to eradicate them, because then they're not there. I mean, if you eradicate poverty, well, we know what that's going to require. But it also means you don't have somebody that you can torment for the amusement of his base.
There are better forms of entertainment than torturing poor people.
Yeah.
Although for rich people, I'm pretty sure that's like it's like that book, the Most Dangerous Game, where they hunt humans.
Yes.
I think that's probably this is part of that sick game that they're playing. We mentioned Trump and manipulating markets with the Iran war. But the Iran war is adding pressure to the slowing U.S. economy. Oh, but the stock market's over 50,000. Doesn't that mean the economy's good? No, that's not what that means. More than 5 months after the U.S. launched its war against Iran, the conflict is placing growing pressure on American consumers, farmers, and the broader economy. Trump initially described the campaign as a 4 to 6 week military operation, but fighting that began March 1st continues, while the Strait of Hormuz, a critical route for global oil and natural gas shipments, remains severely restricted. And just a reminder to folks that before the Iran war, the Strait of Hormuz was open to everybody. It was people were going through there left and right, and now not so much. The disruption has pushed the national average for gasoline above $4 a gallon, compared with about $2.98 before the war. Diesel prices have also increased, raising transportation costs throughout the economy. Oil prices climbed again Monday as Washington and Tehran exchanged demands and showed little sign of returning to negotiations. Farmers have been hit especially hard. The conflict interrupted shipments of natural gas, urea, and other materials used to manufacture fertilizer. Some U.S. fertilizer suppliers warned of shortages, while higher diesel prices increased the cost of planting and harvesting crops. Those expenses can eventually contribute to higher grocery prices because, as always, the higher prices are pushed down to the consumer. The Federal Reserve reported that inflation accelerated after energy prices surged in March. Its preferred inflation measure was running at roughly twice the central bank's 2% goal in May, complicating efforts to lower borrowing costs. Trump continues to describe the economy as being in a golden age, much like his golden toilet. However, the latest Labor Department report showed employers cut 23,000 jobs in July, the first monthly decline since February. The unemployment rate nevertheless fell to 4.1%, suggesting the labor market has weakened but not collapsed. An eventual reopening of Hormuz could reduce energy prices, but without a diplomatic breakthrough, prolonged fighting risks keeping inflation and household costs elevated while further slowing hiring. Again, there's that disconnect between the stock market and the actual economy that everyone else is involved in the United States. And, you know, when these cultists who listen to Trump and say, oh, see, he knows what he's doing. He's a businessman, you know, and if he says the economy is good, you know, who am I to say that it's not? It's like, well, do you wonder why those gas prices are so high? It ain't magic that happened. It's because of all this nonsense, you know, with the war and other shit that's happening. And a lot of people are, you know, some people have found out that they've been sold a bill of goods, and some others are still just like, no, you don't want communism or socialism, right? It's like, well, maybe not, but is this any better? I don't think it is.
Yeah, it's not trickling on down.
Yeah, it's trickling down. We're getting pissed on left and right. So.
I wasn't going to say that, Uncle Warren, but you did it for me. Thank you. Read my mind.
Yeah, that's pretty much. Yeah, that's your trickle down economics right there. Speaking of the Strait of Hormuz, let's get to the man of war stings. Iran is basically, you've heard that saying, having them by the short and curlies, right?
I have.
Yeah, basically Iran has the United States by the short and curlies, and the rest of the world too, for those who are trying to go through that strait. As Iran says Hormuz deal sealed with Oman as Khamenei makes sweeping changes to the military leadership. So there's talking about some of the stuff here, but I'll get down to the point where they're the part where they're talking about the deal. So let's see. Okay. So on Monday, Tehran also announced a deal with Oman on jointly managing the Strait of Hormuz, saying that deal is completed despite efforts by Washington to sabotage it. According to Iran's foreign ministry, bilateral talks continue over technical points in a draft joint statement on the mechanism, which Tehran recently said was nearly complete. The ministry stressed that establishing a safe middle route is entirely separate from fully reopening the strait, noting that the strait remains closed due to U.S. and Israeli attacks, the use of military bases in Gulf states, and the illegal U.S. naval blockade on Iran. Trumpy on Monday demanded that Iran be responsible for the damages and death caused to the people of Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Gaza. I see that representatives of the Islamic Republic of Iran are asking for compensation for the damage done to them during the last 5 months. It was never mentioned in any of our negotiations or meetings, Trump said, although it was because in June, Washington agreed to a memorandum of understanding that set out several points to build on in future talks, including some form of reparations or a fund for the destruction caused by the illegal U.S.-Israeli war. Again, another lie saying that, oh, look at them, they're trying to get money out of us. I was like, yeah, you made a deal, stupid. Another key point of the MOU is a joint Iranian-Omani Hormuz management mechanism without U.S. involvement, but possibly with regional states. Trump was criticized by Israeli media and officials for the agreement. Mr. President, you are not being a good puppet to us. Iran says Washington has been obstructing its Hormuz talks with Oman. That's funny. On August 6th, Reuters reported that U.S. sanctions and restrictive insurance clauses will create severe compliance issues for international oil and shipping firms seeking to traverse the Strait of Hormuz under the proposed deal between Iran and Oman. Yeah. So Iran and Oman have control of that strait, and there's nothing that the United States can do about it. They tried bombing the hell out of Iran, and Iran ended up bombing those Gulf states that had the U.S. bases in them. And so now these Gulf states are like, whoa, U.S., maybe you should just back off, because we're getting our asses kicked too. We didn't ask for any of this. And there's really nothing Trump can do. He can try and bomb them till kingdom come. They're still going to control that strait, and 20% of the world's economy that goes through there.
Yeah. Asking whether everybody thought about this ahead of time is, I think, a moot point at this juncture. And of course, it's the average person that's going to be suffering for this. And he backed himself into a corner. If this is going to be resolved, I have a suspicion, again, other people have been saying the exact same thing. They're going to have to give up. We're going to have to give up a lot more. And it's going to make us look even worse than we already do.
Yeah. And once again, the Strait of Hormuz was wide open for everybody before any bomb was dropped on Iran. So what is Trump going to do about it? Well, back to the old reliable. Trump goes back to sanctions after aggression on Iran fails. I can't bomb them. I keep bombing. We're almost out of bombs too. We keep losing bombs and stuff. So I can't do that. So I'm going to have to go back to the old trusty. So Trump on Monday announced a new push to leverage financial sanctions against Iran, claiming that months of aggression have brought the Iranian economy to a breaking point that could force its leadership to concede to U.S. demands. Yes, do not hold your breath, Trump. Your face will turn blue. The administration is betting that additional economic pressure can compel Iran to end its nuclear program and fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz to oil and natural gas tankers, the AP reported, citing U.S. officials. The shift comes as U.S. stockpiles of key weapons have dwindled and a stop-start negotiations appear to have stalled. The president on Monday said that since Iran is seeking compensation as part of any peace talks, he now intends to demand the same for the U.S. side. Trump claimed to reporters that Iran's economic situation has reached a critical stage. Yeah, they can make trouble, but they're broke. They have no money. Iran is broke, totally broke, and they're not paying their soldiers. They have inflation at 300%. Nose growing. While inflation is running high in Iran, Trump's estimates exceeded what administration officials have been citing to reporters. The Iranian government recently reported an annual inflation rate of 88.6%, which isn't good, but it's not 300%. The International Monetary Fund, the IMF, estimates Iran's overall economy has shrunk by 5.4% due to the war. Crude oil prices climbed on Monday as investors interpreted Trump's comments as a sign that fewer ships would be traversing the Strait of Hormuz, continuing to limit global supplies of gasoline, jet fuel, natural gas, and other forms of energy. The waterway was involved in shipping roughly 20% of global oil supplies before the conflict, and attempts to reopen the strait have been short-lived as it has become a source of leverage for the Iranians in negotiations. So yeah, that's, again, short and curlies. There's Iran, what did they say in 7? Stay away from here, California. John Doe got the upper hand. So stay away from Iran. Iran has the upper hand. And I believe Trump was told before he started all this nonsense that, they had faulty information. They had faulty intel on Iran. They bombed the school that they thought was some sort of military site, but they really underestimated the the longevity of Iran's, like their line of succession and stuff like that. Yeah, they killed their leaders, some of their leaders, but there's more that came up, and we're ready. They've been planning this for 50 years, and I'm pretty sure there were some people who told Trump, "No, this is not a good idea, boss," and he just said, it'll be fine. And spoiler alert, it wasn't fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I don't know how much Trump understands. And I don't know how much of the information actually also gets to him, because I have a feeling that there are other people. It's like a game of operator with him, that there are some people who are able to get his ear, and they're the persons who are going to be taking in the information that's being provided. I don't even want to think about what communications are like in that Oval Office, but he doesn't comprehend it anyways.
He doesn't want actual advisors. He wants yes men and women around him, and that's just going to bite you in the ass. So
yeah.
Let's wade into the press pool here. Don Lemon resurfaces, pun intended. Don Lemon asked judge to dismiss vindictive charges tied to Minnesota church protest. Neither one of these people are Don Lemon, by the way. Independent journalist Don Lemon is asking a federal judge to dismiss charges brought against him in connection with his coverage of an anti-immigration enforcement protest in a Minnesota church earlier this year, claiming he has been wrongfully targeted by the Trump administration. Lemon's lawyers filed a motion on Friday requesting that a felony indictment charging the former CNN anchor with federal civil rights and conspiracy crimes be thrown out on vindictive prosecution grounds. They pointed to a well-documented pattern of Trump's animosity towards Lemon, as well as public statements from senior Justice Department officials that demonstrated direct hostility toward his work as a journalist. The government should not be permitted to use criminal prosecutions to chill journalism disfavored by the president, Lemon's lawyers wrote. The targeting of Mr. Lemon for criticism even before the Minnesota protests, and then the attacks starting on and continuing after, provide more than sufficient grounds to conclude the prosecution of Mr. Lemon is vindictive. The Hill has reached out to the Justice Department for comment. I'm assuming they didn't get any. Lemon was arrested in January in connection with what then Attorney General Pam Bondi, remember her, described at the time as a coordinated attack on City's church in St. Paul, Minnesota, during the administration's federal law enforcement surge. His lawyers wrote that he attempted to turn himself into authorities, but claimed the federal government ignored his request to self-surrender and chose to deputize agents to his Los Angeles hotel in what can only be described as an effort to punish and humiliate him. Lemon was among a group of journalists who documented a group of protesters entering the church where one of the pastors was believed to be affiliated with ICE and interrupting the service with chants of ICE out. 8 people, including Lemon, were indicted on 2 charges under the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, which protects access to houses of worship free of force or threats of force. He has pleaded not guilty. The grand jury indictment followed failed attempts by the Justice Department to secure charges from a federal magistrate judge who found no probable cause to arrest Lemon, according to the filings. The chief judge and Court of Appeals for the 8th Circuit also declined to intervene. Lemon has maintained that he was not on the church premises as a participant, but rather as a journalist simply covering the demonstrations, arguing his actions are protected by the First Amendment. The filings also cited a social media post from the White House account that featured Lemon's picture on a graphic about his arrest with the caption, "When life gives you lemons." Because his name is Lemon. While the government may think it has made lemonade, all it has really made is a grave constitutional violation by arresting a journalist in the middle of the night for his coverage of a matter of public concern, the journalist's lawyers wrote. Lemon is asking that the charges be dismissed with prejudice, meaning they could not be brought again. And I have no love lost for Don Lemon, but I feel like this is some petty bullshit that they kept him out of, they maybe they don't like him, but I mean, it's like he's an independent journalist now. He doesn't work for any of the networks anymore. So why I would think he would be low hanging fruit at this point.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say is, first of all, obviously, I don't like arresting journalists, who are doing their job. I think one of the issues here is that there was, that they were saying that he was more a part of the demonstration than he was a journalist. And if he had inserted himself into the protest, that's different from being arrested for being a journalist doing reporting. So I think that was one issue, and that's going to have to be, sorted out. And I think, again, it's important to note that, yes, there are laws that, in this case, because of the clinic access laws that kept people from impeding women's access to abortion clinics or family planning clinics. It was also put in that you can't impede access to a church. I mean, I don't think anybody should be impeding anybody's access to a church. This was a very specific situation because one of this church's ministers was an ICE agent. But again, if you're going to engage in civil disobedience, that kind of protest, you can expect some kind of legal consequences. So it's I think it's more complex. But I think that this will hinge in part on whether it can be shown whether Don Lemon was actually part of the protest. Did he insert himself into the news, or was he just reporting it?
Right. It seems to me like something that got blown out of proportion too. Kind of like if something like what's her name, Representative Luna, when what's her face from Code Pink touched her arm like with a finger, and she said, "Oh, that's assault." And it's like, really? Is it assault? Come on. Please, maybe technically, if you really, really want to get down to it, but yeah, it's probably a little bit of both. He probably did something to kind of impede, but that wasn't his intention. He was there as a journalist. So, meanwhile, Carr's aide from the FCC, Thuman Severs. Where do they get these names? Gets FCC commissioner nomination. There's Thuman right there. And remember, kids, you can't spell Thuman without human. The more you know. Dun, 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 dun. Days after a contentious ownership deregulation vote split the FCC along party lines, the commission's Republican majority could soon grow by one. Trumpy has picked Danielle Thuman Severs, a senior counsel to Chairman Brendan Carr, to fill one of two open commissioner seats. Thuman Severs currently advises Carr on matters before the Wireline Bureau, the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau, and the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau. After earning a JD cum laude from the Catholic University of America's Columbus School of Law and a bachelor's degree from the University of Virginia, she worked as an associate attorney at Wilkinson Barker Knauer in Washington, D.C. before moving to Carr's office in March 2021 as a legal advisor until 2023. She rejoined Carr's office in August 2024 after a year in the private sector handling state and local government relations for a telecommunications infrastructure provider. Of her nomination, Carr posted, "Danielle is a dedicated public servant and has consistently delivered policy wins from bridging the digital divide and protecting consumers to advancing public safety." Thuman Severs has also been a regular speaker of the Federalist Society's telecommunications and electronic media practice group panels dating back to at least 2018 and is listed among affiliated attorneys of the Republican National Lawyers Association. According to the White House filing sent to the Senate, her term is 5 years. As of July 1st, 2024, confirming Thuman Severs would fill one of two seats left vacant since Republican Nathan Symington and Democrat Jeffrey Starks both departed the commission in June last year, bringing Carr's Republican bloc to the 3-seat maximum allowed by law. It could also create a possible avenue to evict lone Democratic Commissioner Ana Gomez without disrupting the 3-person quorum needed for commission operations. Let me looking at my crystal ball. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. Gomez's term as commissioner expired June 30th. Under the Communications Act, Gomez remains at the FCC in holdover status until a Democratic successor is seated or she is renominated for a new term, a renomination many consider unlikely given her sustained public criticism of Trump and Carr's investigations into broadcasters. However, given the Supreme Court ruling in Trump v. Slaughter, that the president can remove independent agency commissioners without cause. That could mean Gomez's voice of dissent on issues like public interest, the First Amendment, and consolidation could be removed from the commission at any time. So new people in there, same old BS, especially with that new ruling about, was it companies being able to buy more television stations and getting more than 39% access.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a controversial issue right now. There's part of that is being pragmatic. Nobody wants consolidation really, but if it means that you have a bunch of broadcast towers, particularly in small rural areas, that end up being decommissioned, and then you have no local media, that it's another issue there altogether. But remember, this is Chairman Carr. He's the guy who's fighting with the mouse. On trying to accelerate license renewal because he's mad at them about something. This is the guy who's been saying, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. This is the guy who was trying to influence programming around the 250th anniversary of, he's talking about radio stations playing John Philip Sousa. This is not a good time. And I'm concerned about legacy media. I remain concerned about legacy media, which is why I wanted to include this story. If he finds people who are going to follow him as the Pied Piper, and this is going to be a hard time for independent local media, particularly in areas unlike Chicago or the big cities where you have far fewer options. This is serious.
Yeah, Yipper, it's not necessarily a continuation of the 96 Act. I believe this is something more recent where they were even, I think, what was it, 2016, I think maybe, where they were able to buy even more stations, I believe. I'm not quite sure, though, so don't quote me on that.
And by the way, Anna Gomez is good people, and I fully admit I interviewed her. I've met her in person. I've interviewed her for Radio Inc., the publication that I just cited there when I was working there. And I think she's very good at what she does. And I think we have a very serious minded person, a knowledgeable person. She's Hispanic, which has its own advantages in this space, particularly since Hispanic media is incredibly important in this country. And I'm really concerned.
Well, not so good people as we get to the bottom feeders here. This is a fun headline. Company offering 100% human written, never AI. Medical research is entirely AI.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Hello, bullshit. Yeah, this is me. I'm calling you. On these, sorry, there's a little acting there. So Research Gold, a site that advertises services for medical researchers, including draft peer review ready manuscripts, systemic reviews, and meta-analyses, claim that it's 100% human written, never AI, and lists a number of PhD reviewers and professional methodologists on staff that carry out this meticulous, difficult work. The problem, the PhD reviewers Research Gold list on its site are AI generated and don't exist. Other methodologists it lists are real, but are not aware their identity is being used by Research Gold. This is 404. So when 404 tried calling the company, an AI agent that refused to concede it was AI answered and kept trying to sell Research Gold services. Email and chat communication with the company were also AI generated. Are there even people that actually work there, like humans? Protocol, search, screening, extraction, risk of bias, statistics, and a publish ready manuscript formatted to your target journal or committee led by PhD methodologists with peer-reviewed publication records, Prisma 2020, and Cochrane Handbook Methodology. No, sir. What is the methodology? Authorship stays with you, Research Gold site says. Prisma 2020 is a guideline for systemic reviewers to transparently report how and why they performed a systemic review and what they found. Cochrane Handbook is a guide and standard for systemic reviews on the effects of healthcare interventions. Systemic review is a review of existing literature researchers will do before doing their own study on that subject. Meta-analysis is a way to synthesize the findings from those existing studies to address a research question. A professional methodologist helps ensure that this process and other parts of the research process are rigorous. Research Gold introduces the team that does this work under its About page. They include founder and leader methodologist Dr. Elena Vasquez, who has 12 years in evidence synthesis across cardiology and infectious disease, and scoping review specialist Dr. Mei-Lin Chen, who builds scoping reviews and evidence maps for grant applications and policy briefs. Vasquez, Chen, and the other 6 members of this team don't exist. Searches for their names don't return any online footprint that matches the description on the site or a history of publishing reports, publishing papers. Their profile pictures are also clearly AI generated. There was another researcher named Haywood Jablomi. Apparently that's not a real person either. IP freely. Seymour Butts. None of these are real people. A different section of the site listed another group of methodologists with profile pictures that appeared real. Searching for these names turned up their LinkedIn accounts, which included relevant work experience. All of them are or were freelance methodologists or academics. Jenny Barrio, an evidence synthesis scientist who was listed as one of Research Gold's methodologists, told 404 she has nothing to do with the company and wasn't aware her identity was used on the site until I reached out to her, until 404 did. She does know IP freely, but says that they have never worked together. I do not work for Research Gold, and I never agreed to be listed as one of their methodologists. I have no relationship with this company. They are using my name, photo, and bio without my permission. I'm in the process of documenting the site. We'll be sending them a formal takedown request. All the profile pictures for the real methodologists linked on the site are identical to the profile images these people use in their real LinkedIn profiles. One of them even included the hashtag open to work graphic in the profile picture, indicating that Research Gold lifted their identities directly from LinkedIn. Research Gold removed the page listing Barrio and other real people as their methodologists shortly after 404 busted them. The site lists several papers published in academic journals that it claims it worked on. They reached out to the lead authors of the papers, but did not hear back. And this goes on. But basically, shame on you. What was it? Research Gold?
Yeah.
More like fool's gold. Right, more like research pyrite.
Well, this is getting this is getting so weird, Uncle Warren. First of all, I mean, shame on them, because this is medical research, and when they can't, when they're giving people a false sense of security about medical research, that's affecting public health. That's pretty disturbing. But they were talking about this Dr. Elena Vasquez, who does not exist. Curiously enough, I occasionally like to scare myself by listening to these YouTube AI generated audio stories about disasters and that sort of thing. And recently I was listening to one of them, and they called in a specialist, Dr. Elena Vasquez, to testify about something. Now, curiously, Elena Vasquez had a male voice. Now, Elena is a men's name, but I'm beginning to wonder, is it possible that we're going to start seeing AI celebrities, these fake people, okay, and it picks up something from this YouTube transcript. Okay, here we have this whole new AI character. I thought it was very, very interesting that we're going to start seeing entirely manufactured experts, and the LLMs can't distinguish between them.
They have AI influencers on TikTok too.
I know.
And getting thousands, even millions of views and, followers and stuff. It's, we're getting into that territory where you're not going to be able, you won't believe your lying eyes, as they say, because even your eyes may be AI at that point. So as always, folks, stay frosty and do your research, especially when it comes to like medical research. I mean, come on, folks. Yes, that's wild.
Not good.
So, finally today, our animal friends have no business being good to us because we're not really good people as a whole. But this one pet goose said, you know what? I'm going to save these people because I am a hero goose. And so a pet
and not
goose,
a silly goose.
Not a silly goose, although they may have been silly for saving these people. They may have been bad people. I don't know, but that may be for another story. So pet goose hailed as a hero for alerting sleeping family to a barn fire. There was a thing. Is there not a...
All right, back here at...
Why is there not a thing? That's weird. Okay, I thought there was a... Anyway, there was a goose out. What is it? A goose? Was it a goose? Yeah, it's a goose. So Texas family's pet goose is being hailed as a hero for alerting the sleeping family to a fire that erupted in their barn. Fort Bend County resident Bert Gerber, that's a good name. So maybe that's a fake person too. Maybe that's an AI person. Said he was asleep in front of the TV last week when he was roused by the honking of the family's pet goose. Goosey? Really? You couldn't come up with a better name? Come on. That's like calling a dog Puppy. We had like 8 dogs named Puppy because we were very unoriginal people. But anyway, the family's home security cameras recorded as Goosey let out several loud honks while flames erupted in the barn behind the home. I just casually came outside and saw a fire billowing out there, Gerber told KHOU-TV. I grabbed a water hose and ran over there. Gerber was able to extinguish the flames, and the animals inside the barn were able to escape unharmed. Gerber and his wife, Chelsea, said the incident could have turned tragic if not for the Goosey's vigilance. We are still in complete shock over how differently this could have ended, Chelsea Gerber wrote on social media. We are beyond grateful everyone is safe. We couldn't be more proud of Goosey. He truly is our little hero. Goosey came to live with the family in May at the urging of the Gerber's young daughter, Elaine. When we got him, he was so small and he was just so fluffy, Elaine Gerber said. When I got to pet his head, he would just rest his head on my arm, and it just made me tear up. Oh, I know, right? Goosey. Goosey's a hero. Whoa,
but
hello.
It is like it isn't like a male goose a gander.
I'll get your gander. Yeah, there is. That is a goose, a gander, but I don't know. I guess this was a goose. So good on you, chicks, man. Very good.
No, it said he. They kept on referring to Goosey as a he. So that makes it Goosey a gander.
Well, then they should call it pet gander, right? Why does UPI do this to us? Why did they give us this false information? Fake news.
AI.
It was an AI. All of this is made up. It was an AI goose. It was an AI fire. It was AI people, and the report was AI. We're in a different world, folks.
And Chuck, I think that goose are bipeds, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, unless they're running on their wings.
I mean, they're webbed feet, and I mean, maybe you could think of the wing as. Oh, I don't know. Wing is interesting. Never mind.
Well, it seems like we're winging this show at this point. So no Extra Bull live tonight. Couldn't get a guest, but that's okay. I'll be back on Friday morning with Morning Extra and Saturday night for the Secret Show. And of course, this show will be back next week. Do we have a guest next week?
We do. Bill Tilford's coming back to talk about the shenanigans with the election in Indiana. It's been an ongoing saga between the candidate and a Trump endorsed candidate, in which they're asking for all kinds of strange information from the voters themselves. We're also going to be talking about what's happened with Voice of America. We've been reporting on that a bit as well. So he'll be back next week.
Right on. Be looking for the clips. If you missed the whole show, don't worry. You can watch it all over again, or you can just watch out. I put the clips out every day on YouTube and Rumble and Facebook, so you get a little taste of what we've been doing today. Want to thank our guest, Niall, for coming on. He was very informative. Young geese are called goslings, and a group is called Gaggle Giggity. Groovy. See, you learn all kinds of stuff about our feathered friends on this show. So any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Looking forward to Morning Extra on Friday, and then of course the Secret Show on Saturday. Those of you who get our newsletter know that I've now put links to Uncle Warren's shows on Extra Bulla. In that newsletter. If you're not subscribing to our newsletter, why not? It is absolutely free, and you'll get all the show links and a reminder about this show. And if we're doing anything else during the week, or Uncle Warren is, or I am, that'll be in there as well. We also have the links to our mutual aid. Right now, we've got several folks. Lana Dell, who many of you know is a big supporter in this space. She needs our help right now. She's facing a serious medical situation, could really use our help. Also, our good friend Yoninah, she is in Chicago. She unfortunately lost her cat, Empress. We're looking for a little black three-legged cat who was lost in Wrigleyville. If anybody has spotted this cat, do get in touch with us about that. But also she currently has a housing situation, but she's trying to get out of that, and could really use our help. We've also got a whole bunch of other people on that list who have ongoing needs. So if you give that a look, they're either in the show notes on Substack or the show notes here, the captions under our video. We'd surely appreciate. If you can't contribute, please do share them out.
Please do. We're trying to help people in this space. And even just sharing out the links helps out too. So other than that, that's it. Thanks everybody in the chat for hanging out with us. Those who are watching this later, we appreciate you as well. If you can, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channels and all our channels that we're currently streaming this on. We want to thank Chicago Corner for letting us stream on their channel as well. Just give us a like, share, and subscribe. It's absolutely free, folks. What else you got to do, right? Or unless you're AI. Are you AI? Yeah. Don't be AI. Okay. We'll see you next week, y'all. Peace.
All right, take care.